this is your life.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I think you should stay.
Yeah.
I want you here.
Mm.
I want your life. It's important.
Wow. Hey guys, it's Angela with The Angela Rose Show, where we unveil stories of religious abuse. Today we have Jessica from Wild Olive Branch Coaching in the studio again, and we're going to take a dive deeper into some of her life story. So Jessica, let's do it.
Thank you, Annie. It's so good to be here.
Yep.
So my experience growing up in a really religious, rigid setting is a little bit unique than some people. And some of that is because my parents were not members of the church. So I was always like, in my family, we were seen as kind of the outcasts in a way, almost like the wannabes that wanted to belong, wanted to fit in. We did the part, we lived the part, but we were always not quite there. We just weren't quite there.
I wanted to do a back history, and I forgot to mention that you were raised in an Amish community.
Yes. I
We
was raised in
mentioned
an
that on
Amish
the
community.
first set, but yeah,
Yes.
Amish. Yeah.
And I think a lot of it had to do with like my parents' history and some of the things that we had no control over, you know? Just because my dad didn't come from a plain background. We were just a little weird in some ways, and there was nothing we could do about that. So we went to the Amish school. Although they weren't members, my older siblings would often go to church. They became members later. But there was always, for me, I felt this feeling of like, how can I get in? I just want to get in. But because of my family and just the history, I just didn't see a way that I would ever be able to feel like I was truly a part of the Amish community.
That's interesting.
Yeah. My hair, perfect. Part right down the middle.
So it sounds like just due to the fact that your father did not originate from the belief systems of this religious culture, it was not really in your roots deep to be, you didn't have the conditioning quite as deep, would you say?
There was the questions.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would catch myself thinking, what if I give up? Like, what if I'm not always Amish? How would that be?
You've had those thoughts. What
Yes.
age would you have been when you had that thought come through your mind?
It would have probably started when I was 7 or 8.
Wow, that's young.
It was I hated myself for that.
I couldn't have said I would have had those questions so early.
Yeah.
So kind of jealous of that. I wish I would have had that thought.
I hated that about myself.
Think of an option aside from Menanite. You know, that's pretty cool. So,
Yeah.
love that.
I hated that about myself because
Really?
it made me feel like I was always going to be a bad person.
Okay.
Because to be a part of the church and to be able to have that lifestyle would have meant that I was resigned to a life of goodness. So that I was a good Christian. Yeah.
Huh.
And just the fact that I had that fantasy in the back of my mind, I hated it. It wasn't supposed to be there.
You felt like this makes me a bad person.
This makes me bad. No one must know. Yeah.
Okay. That's so interesting to think about.
Yeah, and I also carried so much responsibility and shame for the way that my family appeared to the community because I knew that we were different. I knew that everyone saw us as a little bit off their trail, so to speak.
Wow. Yeah, that really impacts family systems and these beliefs.
Yeah.
A child carries that unspoken
yeah.
understanding, and that intrigues me.
It was tough. So we went to the Amish school. We did all the things that we were supposed to do. There was really nothing different except the fact that we weren't in the club. You know, we weren't highly looked upon.
You weren't one of the positively reputable families.
Oh, no.
The family that has the say-so in the church, there's usually that family that's kind of
We were the people that needed maybe some more witnessing.
Oh.
Some more scripture.
Okay.
Yeah. Some more revival.
So interesting.
And then as I got older, I was probably 9 or 10 when my dad got a truck.
Oh.
Yes.
What did that mean?
There were so many children because, like I said, there was 15 of us, and it was just so
you
hard.
Have a truck?
No,
Oh
no, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah,
they don't drive.
but my dad wasn't a member, so
Okay.
so he got a truck
Mm-hmm.
to, I think, just to make it easier for us to do what we needed to do, and get groceries and go to doctor's appointments, because when there's so many children, it gets expensive to pay a driver.
Wow.
To do all of that.
Yeah.
So my dad drove home with a little white truck with bucket seats.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow.
And instantly it was like, there's definitely something wrong with the family.
Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
Because up until that point, the only thing that we had that nobody else had was a camera that we kept hidden.
Oh, so you had to hide that camera.
We had that camera.
Yeah.
We didn't even use it much, but we had it.
Okay.
And I think we also had a CD player.
Which was very worldly.
And sometimes we played old Loretta Lynn Christian songs on that thing.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Your family did do things a little different.
Because we had some friends that were not in the culture. Because we would sell vegetables and all that, so they would come.
So you had
buy
a few
vegetables.
outside resources there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we did.
Huh. Or influences more like. Mm-hmm.
Oh, they weren't resources. They were influences.
I was like, that's a better word. A bad evil influence.
So because of the dysfunction and the violence and the way that pain kind of made me feel in control, the beating and the ways I was able to dissociate and handle life, I began to start to inflict pain upon myself as a way to feel like I was in control and that I was going to make it, and as a way to kind of remind myself that I have a choice in this matter.
Right.
I can take things into my own hands, and it gave me a power that I didn't have before. I felt in charge.
How old would that have started for you?
It started when I was 6 or 7. I can't remember which age, but I know it was right around the time I went to school.
Wow.
So I would go to school and I would enjoy myself at school. I was very intelligent, A+ student.
Huh.
I was a different person when I was at school, and I would remember coming home.
Yeah.
I'd be coming down that driveway because we walked, and as I came down the driveway, I started to feel that like impending doom, that I'm coming back into this hellhole. And I would say to myself, let's make an appointment. Let's do something to help this feeling. And if I had that in my head, that in a half an hour, like when I take laundry upstairs to my room that I'm putting away, I can quickly hurt myself a little bit, and that'll help me feel better. So it was like a hope that I had, something to look forward to. Like, this is the next thing that's going to happen to me, and I'll be okay. So that I would do that, and when that time came, I would disappear for a little bit, and I would harm myself, and I would enter into this place of just quiet, silent. It's all going to be okay. No matter what happens, I can live, I can die. No matter what happens, it's all good.
Wow.
That really stayed as kind of like my baseline way of survival throughout childhood. And it came out in different ways. There's a lot of ways to bring pain to your human body, and I'm not going to get into that today.
Right.
But as I became older, I knew it was bad before, I knew I shouldn't be doing it. But the shame that I felt from the ways that I responded to my trauma, it felt worse than the trauma itself. Because I knew how I would be looked at if anybody knew what was going on and what I would do. And so that was a heavy weight.
Wow. Yeah.
Heavy weight, but no way of stopping it at that point.
Right.
Oh, I would try to stop. It wasn't like I did it and I enjoyed it, and it was like, I can't not do this, and I hate myself for doing this, but there's no other option here.
Right. It was your escape.
Yeah. So a lot of my childhood, when I think about it, when I remember it, there's parts of like abuse and years that I can't recall very easily. But the thing that always sticks in my brain is what I did and the pain that it caused me, because nobody understood it. There was nobody there to tell me what was going on.
Right.
Nowhere to go with it.
Wow.
And I think that's one of the most damaging parts of trauma is it happens to you, but the trauma is the part of being alone in it.
Right.
The part of not having anywhere to present it or to express it.
No safety. No sense of safety.
No safety. No.
Wow.
So when I became maybe 12 years old, that also started coming out in my body. For me, I carry stress in my body, and so that's where it's going to come out.
Right.
I started to have a lot of sicknesses. I would just lay on the floor in pain, and started throwing up. I developed a stomach ulcer, and I wasn't able to keep food down. So, there was eating disorder, which also came along with the self-harm, another form of control, another area where I could make my own choice, and nobody could take that from me.
That part just breaks my heart, because that's what's so right, is to be able to make a choice for yourself. And yet it's so heartbreaking how that was presented, because there was nothing that you had ever seen different.
No.
Set as an example of care for who you are as an individual. Wow. Huh.
I had no other opportunity to choose anything.
Nothing.
And no other options either, if you think about it.
Would you have, in those times, like in that space, even have had the thought of options? Like, was that a thought that would come through your mind? Is there an option beyond this survival?
No.
That's what I wondered.
Because if you don't have the ability to choose, or if you have never been given that right,
you don't have
you don't think of the options either.
Because you never had the chance to think for yourself.
You wait for somebody to present the option to you, and that doesn't happen.
Right.
Yeah.
So you were making options for yourself.
I did.
The best that you could.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And the other interesting thing too, like now thinking back on it, I would have never heard anything. I didn't know it was called self-harm.
Okay. When did you learn that
I didn't know it was an addiction.
Okay.
I learned that term when I was 18 years old.
Really?
17. Let's say 17.
Mm-hmm.
When I went for some help, I learned that term.
Okay. Before, you didn't have a name for what was even going on?
No. I would say I'm cutting myself. Just to myself.
Yeah.
Because that was the only place to take it.
Right.
Yeah. So, when that escalated, I was probably, like I said, entering into the teenage years. And I distinctly remember one day, after all the ways I'd been screamed and yelled at and pushed around and been made to feel like I didn't deserve to exist and that I was a reason for everyone else's pain. I felt this rage come up inside of me, and it scared the crap out of me because I had been so numb for so long already. And I gritted my teeth and I said, I'm done. I'm not going to feel anything anymore. It's not worth it.
So you had this specific intentional moment mentally?
I whispered it. Yeah.
Really?
I'm done with this.
Okay. Wow.
I'm numb. I can't feel anymore.
Yeah.
I don't have to feel anymore. Because at that point, I had the ability to dissociate. Like, we had done it, right?
Yeah.
Like, we dissociated.
We didn't even think to do that.
Right.
Yeah.
It was automatic. And so...
Well, wouldn't you say that's how the body naturally responds to things that it can't comprehend at 2 years old?
It's such a wise...
Let alone 7 years old, 10 years old. Like, God made our bodies to respond accordingly to survive that.
Yeah. When things are too overwhelming, the brain does that to protect you.
So it's what's right about our bodies.
It's what's good.
It's what's good.
Yeah. It's what keeps us alive.
Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
As you were saying.
Yeah, so that moment where I not only was aware that I was shutting down, but I made that another choice. I will not care anymore. She can do anything she wants to, my abuser. I don't care. Worst case scenario, dying? It wasn't worst case scenario to me anymore.
Okay.
Bring it on, you know? Just that defeat. And about 2 months ago, I wrote a poem to describe that time in my life because it's been easy for me to look back at my childhood and have compassion for a powerless child who couldn't defend herself, who had no choice in the matter. It's a little bit harder for me to really recognize the goodness that I still had, the goodness that was a part of me as a teenager that wasn't safe to uncover at that point. It was still there. And to be able to honor and respect myself as a teenager, doing all these things to cope. So I want to read that poem.
So I want to take a quick second to encourage you guys to like, share, and comment here on our YouTube channel. It helps to push our channel out to reach more people, which is our goal for this show. Thank you so much.
This is a poem that I wrote to describe that time of shutting down. You can't hurt me anymore, so scream at me if you will. Your threats don't reach my heart. I'll just grab another pill. I can't think any less of me now. And as for change, I don't know how. Nothing matters if it's not real. I'm safe now. I don't feel. That was my safety.
Yeah.
To not feel.
I like that word.
Yeah. You can't hurt me anymore. I will fill the voids you made with self-inflicted violence and all the things you forbade. The cuts don't bring me pain. Somehow they keep me from going insane. Am I crazy? And what's the big deal? I'm hard now. I don't feel. You can't hurt me anymore. I grew up fast and walked out that door. When I started living, they thought I had died. As you played the victim and Crocodile cried, they prayed that I would reconcile when you were the mother and I was a child. All I wanted was safety from danger, not a pat on the back from the hands of a traitor. I left to stay alive and heal. I was invincible. I couldn't feel. I met with my grief, made peace with my past. My heart began to unthaw. Maybe I wasn't evil, just trying to cope. I looked inside and saw a good-hearted person hidden away, locked down with vows to stay quiet. She opened her eyes. I heard her say, "It's time to live. I will try it. I'm not the kid you knew before, and you won't hurt me anymore."
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That was good. It's one of those things where you just go speechless.
I know.
That's how I feel right now. You can't add to that.
I'm back there in my heart as I recall it.
Yeah.
I go back there and I feel it.
Yeah.
I choose to feel it again.
Yeah.
Because that dark period in my life is what was a part of today.
Yeah.
And it's where my passion lies. It's what gives me the fire to keep going.
Right.
To keep extending what I have to offer to other people in their pain.
And that's what makes you a trusting person to work with people in this type of work. It's because your passion and your the gifts that you offer come from your experience.
Yeah.
And there is nothing that trauma survivors feel more safe with than someone who has been there, lived it. We all have a unique story, but again, just helping from the heart is powerful.
It is. It's so powerful. And I own that.
Yeah.
That what I do comes from my own experiences and
Yeah.
and what I've learned, and also what my heart is able to give because of what it's received in healing.
Right.
And there's been a lot of people who've said, "You're just doing what you're doing because of your own experience." Like,
Ooh, okay.
yeah.
Almost as like, what does that feel like when someone says something like that?
It means that they're discounting what I went through.
Right.
And also saying because you're coming from a place of pain, you'll never be able to offer hope to another person.
Right, because they have this idea that you're blinded by the pain.
Yeah.
Because I had something said to me recently, like, you're looking at the world through the lens of your pain. So that's basically what you're invalid because your lens is marred. So I felt that when you said that.
Yeah.
Which is often
Gaslighting at its finest. Gaslighting at its finest. And the last time that was said to me by someone who I really loved,
wow.
I said, "You're right.
Huh.
This comes from my experiences."
Okay.
Yeah. I own that.
And it's not a shame.
It's not a shame.
And that's a projection of shame.
Yeah.
The idea that your experience is dissed or invalid.
And it all changes around when you learn to value your experience and what it's taught you.
Right.
And where it's brought you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a thing to be ashamed of.
Yeah.
It's not anything that's going to discount you.
Right.
Or hold you back. Or keep you from your goals. Nothing is wasted because things that happen that we have no control over, they can be used to take us places we would have never went before.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
So I'm a teenager who, at that point, was doing unspeakable things to my body, which was not allowed. It was viewed as demonic. It was viewed as I may as well have been trying to kill myself. There's a place in the Bible that talks about these people who were disobeying God, and they were calling on Satan to help them. And while they were calling on Satan, they started cutting themselves. And I remember as more people began to find out that I had this problem, they would bring up that scripture.
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Demon possessed. We've got to pray this out of you.
Match up with this.
Yes. And if you pray the right prayer, and if you believe, you won't struggle with this anymore. And if you pray the prayer and you struggle with it tomorrow, it means that you didn't believe. It means that you didn't pray it right.
Whew.
It means that whatever's inside of you that's making you do that is still there.
So then what?
Well, I felt pretty hopeless with that.
Well, yeah.
Because every time I was approached in that way, it only created more and more shame. Because if you have a demon in you, you can't be a Christian, right? And I wanted to go to heaven. That was what kept me going all these years. Like, I can't die. I can't end my life because that would mean I wouldn't go to heaven. So if I'm alive and I'm doing something like this, it means that there's no use, right? So it was kind of taking away my last effort.
Right.
And just making me feel like it's not worth it anymore.
Right.
Around that time, everything escalated internally.
Mm-hmm.
On the outside, I got more and more controlled. I did all the things. I wore those cape dresses with the belts and the long sleeves. Guess what? I wear them all the time. I didn't even ask for the short sleeves because that would just reveal the self-sabotage. And so I looked like a pretty good Menanite girl because we had changed Menanite.
Okay.
Over around this time, we had gone from the New Order Amish Church to Beachy Amish / Menanite. I wanted to get baptized. It was my greatest dream. And I thought that I could maybe stop cutting. And I tried every day. Around that time, I also, because of my health problems that I had, I was prescribed drugs that I should not have been prescribed. And I was told that because I don't work hard enough at the house, if I take these, maybe it'll help. Maybe you'll work harder. Maybe you'll pull your part. And so I used the drugs every day, and the drugs were continuing to be given to me. So that did not help my cutting at all, because now I'm addicted to two things. Now I need two things to cope. But I went to instruction class faithfully for a year. I said the right words. I learned how to pray the right words. I learned how to be the Christian that I was supposed to be. And word came out around that time that I was being rebellious at home. My mother did not want me to get baptized, and so she talked to the preacher and said that she has some concerns about my spiritual life. And she didn't know anything. Girl, listen to me. None of my parents knew a thing about my self-harm addiction until after I left home.
Really?
After I left home. 10 years. That's how disconnected they were.
Right. Wow.
And that's something that's hard to hide. Because blood-soaked sleeves, how could you not see that?
How
could you not know? How could you not see that I'm struggling?
it's horrific.
It's horrific.
It's horrific.
Yeah.
You can't not see that.
Yeah. Or that you can't even be curious, wonder. Why is she quiet today? What's she doing when she's alone?
That's tough.
Yeah. So, because they had concerns that I wasn't as obedient and submissive as I should have been. So my fire was coming up.
So their concerns were rebellious. So you just weren't being sweet enough. It wasn't even,
I wasn't.
They had no concept of the real hell you were dealing with, and they were taking this to the preachers. The little things.
Here's some of the things that I was starting to do. I was starting to step in the way and say, hit me. You're not going to hit them anymore today. They've been punished enough.
You were starting to step in and say some stuff.
Yeah. And I also didn't care about my own protection from her anymore. So
you were defending the others in
yeah,
your family.
yeah. Just hit me and let them go.
Wow.
And so I was really standing in the way of her ability to dominate and control and to abuse. So that was rebellious. You should never second guess or question, much less stand up, defend yourself or somebody else. So that escalated the abuse too by it became a power struggle. And because my mother knew that it bothered me so bad to see my siblings being hit, she would hit them to get back at me. She would hit them because she knew that it would put me in a terrible, powerless, hopeless place.
Wow. It's just...
Which made me stop again. It brought me to a place where I couldn't defend them anymore. Because that would just mean they would be abused worse.
Right.
Wow. And because of those things that I was starting to do and those opinions I was starting to have, my parents decided that I shouldn't be baptized. And so when the time came to be baptized, they told the preachers, and the preachers said, "We've decided to not baptize you." It was utmost rejection to me because I'd spent over a year of sitting in that instruction class, trying to be good, trying my darnest to be the person that I wanted to be for the church.
Yeah.
And it kind of made me feel like there wasn't any reason to hang out much longer.
Yeah.
That brought me to a place where I said, I don't care anymore. I'm not gonna keep this under control. I'm just gonna start doing what I need to do to live, to survive. And the addiction got so out of hand that around that time, as I was going to church, a couple at church noticed that there's something different about her. She doesn't keep eye contact. She's guarded. She carries heaviness with her. What's going on? And I was working at a greenhouse during the day sometimes, and they met me there. They came one day to visit me.
Really?
And they wanted to understand me. They wanted to know, what is your life like at home? Wow. Tell us about yourself.
Wow.
And instead of that helping me to feel better, it brought me face to face with the reality of how bad things really were.
Yeah.
And the fact that this was not going to get better. And they said they would be willing to help me leave if I was ready. I was 16.
Okay.
I hung in there. We did all the paperwork because this was going to have to go through the court. We did those things before I turned 17, but we knew that if I could hang in there until I was 17, there'd be a bigger chance that the judge would allow me to be emancipated legally, where I wouldn't have to go back home. So that's around the time I left. All this was undercover. No one knew. On multiple occasions, I had said to my father, if things don't get better, I have to leave.
Okay.
And this was not a threat. This was the truth. I think he may have saw it as a threat.
Okay.
And so it was more like, you'll be okay. Things will get better tomorrow. Just stop making her so mad. Like don't enrage her. So I left.
So this couple were a part of helping you with this escape.
They were Menanite.
Okay.
Yeah. I have high respect for them to this day.
Wow.
They got a lawyer for me. They helped me make the Department of Children's Services report. They were with me every step of the way.
Wow.
They funded that. How I left was because I had mental health issues, because I was depressed, and my mother knew at the time that I was depressed. I went to a counseling facility for some help, and she was more than happy for me to go get my issues fixed. And while I was there, the law enforcement delivered the paperwork to my parents that I wouldn't be coming back home and that there was a restraining order on them. They would not be allowed to call me, contact me, or come close to where I was staying.
Right.
It was chaos, but I wasn't there to see it come down.
Yeah.
And several weeks later, I saw them in court. We met in court, and the decision was made that I wouldn't return home.
Okay. Did you feel validated at all in court that day?
I did. My mother wanted to speak, and the judge said that she's not allowed to speak. He turned to my dad and wanted to hear my dad's perspective. And my dad actually advocated that it might be the best for me to not go back home. Even though there was another part of him that I saw multiple times before and after that time, where he wanted me to come back home, and he thought that things could change and I would come.
Okay.
But it would never happen.
Yeah.
So I'm gone from home. Everything should get better, right? My environment is fixed. This should mean that I stop cutting. This should mean that I quit taking the pills. It should mean that I'm not depressed anymore. I fell apart.
Yeah.
Because the things that were helping me to maintain some form of control, the hard things, the abuse, the terror, all those things are what kept me strong. And when I didn't have that anymore, what do you do with that? How do you survive with that?
Would you consider that a new form of hell?
It was a new form of hell.
What do you do without the hell?
It was something that I didn't know how to medicate.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to cope with it.
Yeah.
I would say, somebody scream at me.
Mm-hmm.
The couple that had helped me leave. Like, can you just scream at me? Can I go back home?
Yeah.
Just take me back home. There was actually one point where I literally tried to go back home. And my mother said, "Oh no." After her going to court to try to get me to come back home, in a moment of weakness when I didn't know how to cope without pain, when I requested to come home, "Oh no, you won't do that. You won't see your siblings ever again." So there I was. The things that worked before didn't work now.
Wow. Yeah.
And the walls were crumbling, because somebody was also valuing me and loving me.
Yeah.
And that's also another thing I didn't know what the hell to do with.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
It's like, stop. I don't want that.
Like, you can't control that, right?
You can't control it. No.
I can't control that these people care about me.
Yeah. And it doesn't feel good to shame. It
does
reveals more shame.
It's extremely uncomfortable.
Yeah. Shame hates that because shame likes silence.
So what was the beginning of the world outside of the home then?
So imagine if you grew up in a valley, you don't know what happens outside. You don't know what life is like. You turn your head away from the woman with shorts.
Ooh.
And God forbid you see a shirtless man.
Oh, yeah. Bounce those eyes. Quit.
Yeah, that wasn't just for the men.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Okay. I remember doing it. I was good at it. Like a good robot.
Sigh.
Don't look.
Yeah. So it was the fact that I had left home and I had also been kicked out of instruction class.
Okay.
So literally my entire life changed. My whole plan of survival, there was nothing there.
Huh.
Because the future that I dreamed of before, everything was different. And what was I going to do with it? Who was I going to be? Because I didn't know who I was. And so I thought, well, first of all, I should probably get some money. I quickly
smart. Again, I was like, I don't even know if I ought to put outside of me. Like, yeah,
I need money.
You'd have that.
So what I did was I
love it.
I got a job.
Yeah.
I actually had 2 jobs. I worked for a married sister in a greenhouse, and then I also had a older couple who needed somebody to stay with her because she was old and she had dementia and she needed a caretaker.
Okay.
I lived with them and I was her caretaker. So it worked perfectly. Fun fact, when it was time for me to move on from working for them, they had no idea that I wasn't 18. They thought I was old. But they're like, all's well, it all turned out. We didn't know that you were underage. But it gave me a place to kind of get grounded, and I started to pour myself into, like, I need money, I need a car, I need transportation. The first thing I did, along with getting a job, was get a car.
Okay.
And I knew somebody that I could get money for. I could borrow money to get a car. And so I borrowed just enough money to get a car. And then when I went to buy the car, I used up the money that I had borrowed and also every single cent that I had to my name. I'm this all-in type of person. And I didn't think, what about some food? What if I need some clothes or something like that? Like, no, I didn't go there. And so I remember the next day, I'm driving around my car and I'm hungry. And I'm like, shit, what am I going to eat? So I stop in the Taco Bell parking lot and I'm pulling up the mats in my car and I find $1's worth of change.
Oh, wow.
So I pull up to the drive-thru and I order the value menu, whatever, taco thing. I forgot the tax.
Oh.
And I was so embarrassed. And I was like, it's okay. It's okay. Don't worry about it. And she's like, no, I'll pay for it.
Yeah.
And I felt so guilty.
Oh.
Because I didn't want to admit that I didn't have what I needed.
Yeah.
So
wow.
It was really interesting because, like, the naivety, just not having the experiences that I needed to make even the most practical choices.
Yeah.
I mean, I never ordered in a drive-thru.
Yeah.
I'm about to have a panic attack driving up to the window.
Yeah.
How am I going to look this person in the eye? And they're like, I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You got to talk louder.
Wow.
So that was really tough.
Oh, yeah.
It was really tough.
It's like entering into a whole new world.
Yeah. I felt
you
like
don't know
an
how to do
ignorant fool. And it really validated all that I felt about myself before. Like, you have no place in this world.
Okay.
How are you going to make it? Like,
yeah.
You know, I'm driving around in my little car. I took the antenna off. But I could still.
Why did you do that?
Because I just still love the church.
Okay, you did it conscientiously.
I
People
did.
that don't know, what does that mean?
Well, you have to take your antenna off so you can't listen to the
We
radio.
know, because we grew up in the
Yeah.
church, or the plain church.
But I didn't want to ruin my car, and I was like, what if it rusts in that spot?
So, yeah, you took it off so you couldn't listen to the radio.
Yeah.
Because that was sin.
But if you turned it, pretty staticky, but you could hear.
Oh.
You could make out the songs.
So you turned it on anyways.
I
Good.
No, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But then I also had a spoiler on this car. And so word came back that I needed to take my spoiler off, and I was like, well, that doesn't really make sense because I'm not a member, so I shouldn't have to do that.
So you're a practicing Menanite at this point now.
Yeah, but I wasn't a member. I was still going to the church.
Right.
I still was fully dressed Mennonite.
Yep.
But I was like, why should I have to do that if I'm not a member, if I'm not becoming a member? And I remember my brother went out there and he had a screwdriver and he started to like shake it a little bit. And I was like, no, don't do it. No, I'm leaving that thing on.
Oh.
And I left it on.
Good for you.
The antenna was enough.
Yeah. You need a little bit of sass in that car.
Yeah. So I'm in the era of like the white tennis shoes.
Yeah.
You know, with the dresses, and what else was pretty crazy? The tampons instead of the pads.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because God forbid that you put anything in your vagina.
So you're saying tampons were not allowed.
Yeah.
And so now that you're out in the real world, you could use tampons.
Right.
Oh my
Right. And so I'm thinking that'd be kind of cool. Like, I don't know really how to use it, but then you're standing there and there's 20 options.
Yeah, it's a lot of decisions to
make. And then people are looking at you and it's like, I don't want to, I didn't even want to go through the checkout.
Because it's shameful. Oh, I know what that was like. I literally had to hide that box.
Yes.
This is an embarrassment that I'm a woman, let alone buying this.
Yeah. It was so shameful.
This just breaks my heart now.
I know.
Looking back, it even angers me that was
such a normal feminine part of you brought you so much shame.
The shame to be
a woman and to embrace your femininity.
This is just natural born human anatomy here.
Right. Right. And so when I looked at the tampon box that day, I learned that they are called tampons.
Okay. So that's where you learned the name for the first time.
Yeah. So after I left home and everything that had helped me cope before all fell apart, and the things like the cutting, all of that, it wasn't working. I couldn't find any sense of stability no matter what I did. I started to take the pills more. And one day I was at work and I took a pill. And I thought, I still feel really bad. I take another one. So I took another one. Still didn't feel any different. Still hated myself. I took another one and another one and another one. And I started to fade out. I was there alone in a vehicle. And I had been in communication with the people that had helped me leave home. I had been in communication with them earlier that day, and for some reason she texted me or she communicated on my phone somehow, and she wasn't getting a response, so she came over. And they found me passed out in the vehicle and took me to the ER. And so I remember waking up, I'm in the ER, and the very first thing I think is, oh my word, how am I going to hide this? This is the ultimate sin. Oh God. This is a thing that I tried not to do my entire life.
And you had to wake up worrying about that.
And I woke up and that was the first thing that hit me. Everyone's going to find out. What story am I going to have for this?
You had to work out. So you're saying you woke up worrying about everyone else because that's just the
After it all came back, I'm laying there.
Just breaks.
I'm laying there. My breathing is slow, way too slow, so slow, and I'm so calm that I have to make myself breathe every time. And I'm thinking, shall I just stop?
Yeah.
But that wouldn't work because I'm at the hospital.
Hmm.
So, gosh, that's terrible.
Yeah. That got me.
Yeah.
Especially the part where you had to wake up in the programming that coming through about everyone else's well-being. I feel like it just drives home the horrors of everything.
You're stuck either way.
Yeah.
You're fighting a losing battle the entire time.
Yeah. It's just a trap.
It's a trap.
There's no way around it.
Yeah. And I never figured out how I was going to argue that. But when people started to come visit me, I'm laying there, right? I can't walk by myself yet. I'm incapacitated, and people are starting to find out Jess overdosed. When you hear that somebody overdosed, you assume that they intended to die.
Which was considered this terrible crime.
Yes, the unforgivable crime.
Yes.
How dare you take your own
I remember
into your own hands?
it was a terror.
Yeah.
People were terrorized to never consider suicide because it's a straight ticket to hell.
Yeah. And so I tried to explain myself. I didn't want to die. I wasn't doing it to die. I just wanted to feel better.
Right.
I didn't have the intention to die, and I didn't know how far it would go. Yeah. And I explained it because I didn't want to have that judgment on me on top of everything.
It didn't match for where you were. Didn't align.
It didn't. Yeah.
And yet forced on you.
But then again, I couldn't get through to them where I was at. Like, even with my explanation and my trying to help them understand me, it was kind of like, well, you overdosed.
They didn't hear you.
They didn't hear me. No.
Yeah.
And so the proof of how mentally unstable I was, it was there on the table. I went to a counseling center in North Carolina, kind of like a rehab type thing, a girls' facility. And I was there for 9 months. I learned how to modify my behavior there. I learned how to control it. It was my only chance to stop. And in that place, I also received goodness. I also received genuine love. And other things were re-traumatizing and damaging, specifically the spiritual aspect of it. The spiritual approach to the things that I was doing, because I felt so very misunderstood. And I felt like the very reason for why I was doing what I was doing, that it kind of got missed. Yeah. I had a life-changing experience while I was there. When I was alone by myself, I wasn't with a counselor at that point. But I'm sitting in this room with my eyes closed, and I'm seeing all the parts of me that are just kind of assembling together in the room. There's somebody over in the corner cutting, and there's a powerless little girl that's just laying naked over here, not crying, not moving, not making a sound. There's somebody over here, just staring off into the distance. There's like all these parts of me and we're all sitting in this room. Nobody has anything to say. And what do I say to them? I think that whole experience was really it was a turning point for me. It wasn't the end, but it was the beginning to the transformation process that I experienced following that, where I was able to look at them and say, I want to get to know you guys.
Oh my
God. I want you to be a part of my life because this wasn't your fault.
Wow. You seen
my sensitive, genuine heart, the nurturing parts in me that I had shown to my little siblings and to the people around me who came to me with their pain.
Mm-hmm.
It only made sense that I would like to offer that to myself.
Wow.
Yeah. It was deeply spiritual too.
Yeah.
And I knew, even with all this spiritual conditioning and, God hates
the toxic part.
Yeah, in that moment when I saw all of them doing their stuff, being wounded, being traumatized, being angry, that God cared about every single one of those girls.
Your intuitive, true, core, connected self to the higher power was aware. This is how it really is.
Yeah. This is it. I felt like that was a miracle.
Wow.
And that was where I started to get in touch with the power that I have.
Yeah.
To pursue change. Not to depend on what this therapist or this counselor has or this person, not dependent on the way that they love me or the way they say that there's hope for me. I had to claim it for myself. I had to take ownership.
Wow.
The beginning. That was the beginning. That wasn't the ending.
Just like, that just sounds like such a moment of clarity, though.
It was.
And isn't clarity a huge part of the process?
Clarity. Yes. That even though I had no words for everything, even at that point, I welcomed them to be a part of my life. And I sobbed and sobbed and sobbed for hours. And when I stood up from that chair, it felt like I was standing and standing and standing taller and taller.
Really?
And everything was quiet. There were no voices screaming in my head. Nobody was hating on each other in there. It's like, maybe we can have some peace. Maybe we can be on the same team.
What sounds to me from what I hear as I hear you say that is you were sitting with a safe person.
Yeah. It was me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what has been the most helpful for you in your recovery?
I can tell you some things that have been super helpful. I don't know which was the most, but one of the biggest things for me was having a safe place to be where I can figure all of this out, where I can not worry about like being hypervigilant and watching my back like I did my entire childhood, but just be able to unravel and untangle and lay things out so that I can find some clarity to bring to this confusion.
So you said safety.
Space, safety, a safe space for me to pursue my own answers and to be respected in the middle of it, not to be fixed.
Oh, yeah.
Not to be another project for somebody who needed to feel better about themselves.
Oh, yeah. Which is such a component in religious abuse.
Yeah.
That re-traumatization is horrific. Feeling like their project.
Yeah. Another thing that has been really important to me in my recovery is my faith and allowing myself to get to know a God who never existed in my childhood. Intuitively, I knew that there was a higher power and that he wasn't like my father, he wasn't like my mother, he wasn't like the preacher in my church.
Okay.
And I felt like he would have the patience for me to ask him some really hard questions and navigate this with me. Another thing that has been the most helpful for me is just allowing myself to take time and understand that trauma isn't a once and done thing. You're going to feel pain. And other days you're going to feel joy. You're learning to make space for more joy, for more carefree, for less struggle. You're learning not to fight, because...
You mean fight it? Like fight what?
Because when you're in a safe environment, you've got to learn how to stop fighting and how to start resting.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So since I was out of the environment and the source of my troubles, I had to learn how to stop fighting, and I had to learn how to feel. I had to learn how to be in connection with myself.
Whole new world.
Yeah. I tended to gravitate towards education. And I think that came from just a form of power that I needed, because education is very limited as children. And so I hardly got to 8th grade because I was at home working so much.
Okay.
And one of the first things I did was found some empowerment through learning. I started studying mental health like crazy. I spent hours studying mental health, and it helped me learn to understand myself.
Yeah.
It answered a lot of questions for me, and it also gave me some more tools for how to navigate what I needed. There was a point in education and in understanding mental health where I also had to lay that down. And that was a different type of releasing, letting go for me. Because it came in layers where I was disconnected from everything, my head and my body, initially. And earlier on in recovery, I learned to find the place in my head, at least, get comfortable with not being dissociated, being grounded in my mind, not in my body, just learning how to think, how to follow a thought process, how to read an entire chapter of a book. But eventually I had to get to a place where I could let go of knowing and learn how to find safety in my body, learn how to connect with what I feel in here to what happened.
But I love this because I feel like it brings out such a component that I relate to in some of my processes where you really needed that time frame to just have structure and clarity experience with your thought process in your brain. You were coming to a place that was going to later give you enough safety to enter into the next layer, which was the body.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to have a certain amount of clarity experience out there, which I really value.
I love clarity.
Yeah.
Yes.
But then
a lifeline.
But then it's also essential
Yeah.
to get in touch with the body because that mind-body connection.
It's so important, but it's not the end goal.
Okay.
It's a very important tool in recovery. But then there's more on top of that. I value clarity so much. It's one of my passions in my writings.
Yeah.
To bring connection and clarity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is so validating to the rest of us.
Yeah. Everyone deserves that.
Oh, yeah. So tell me about your hat.
Yes, my hat. I think you should stay.
Yeah.
And what I like about this phrase is it's not a controlling, you have to stay or else. When I came out of my overdose, there was a point where I had to make a decision. What am I going to do with my life? Like, where am I headed? And in that moment, it wasn't like, I'm all in, let's go live, let's do this. Because I had no idea what would be here, right?
Right.
It started out as me thinking, what if? What if I would try it? What if I would give it a good, fair chance? and give myself time and see what could change. Because I love the world, I love people, and I didn't think that that was the end of the story or that's how it would look. And that's my heart with the phrase here is it's not you have to stay, you must stay. This is your choice. This is your life.
Yeah.
But if you ask me, I think you should stay.
Yeah.
I want you here. I want your life. It's important.
Wow.
Last year, I was selected for a self-harm transformation, and I had wanted a wild olive branch tattoo for a long time because in the past, my scars have kind of been like a mark of shame for me. I've often caught myself just kind of turning my arm a little bit, and even after I've gone through so much healing and I'm a completely different person. I'm a mother and a wife and a successful businesswoman. This was still needing some closure. So when I was selected last year for a transformation, I knew I wanted a wild olive branch that signifies hope. It signifies peace. Olive trees grow best in rocky soil, and it's dry, and there's adversity that it goes through to produce good fruit. And so that's my olive branch here. Shows really the process. Like the leaves, I have some broken leaves here, some leaves that are flipped and turned. We won't forget the shame. We won't forget the brokenness. We won't forget the places that I've been.
Wow.
Because they're important parts of who I am.
I love that.
This is resilience.
Wow.
And this is the blooming stage, like the fragile buds.
And
And
it's so natural looking.
Yeah. And here we have the where the fruit is starting to come out. Still very, very tender.
I feel like I see all the seasons in that, like so many different.
And then the flourishing and the thriving. Yeah. So when I look at my arm now, the scars weren't the end of the story.
Yeah.
They're an important part. I didn't want to hide them.
Yeah.
But this brings the closure to that season. This reminds me of the hope in that season. Because hope didn't come later. Hope was there the whole time. I just needed to uncover it. I needed to see it there. The story didn't need to change in order for hope to come.
That's profound.
Yeah.
Oh.
Thank you for allowing me to share my story with you today.
Thanks for showing up and just letting us be a part of it. I really enjoyed it.
It's my honor.
Yeah. So for those of you who enjoyed hearing Jessica's story and want to learn more and hear from her again, you can follow her page at Wild Olive Branch Coaching. She does a lot of writing there. She does a lot of trauma, like informative posts, just some good stuff. And I know you would really enjoy that. So give her a like, and thank you so much for joining us today.